Hi everyone, Janie here with Michael Glassman.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Welcome. So we have a fun special treat for all of you. I'm so excited to get started on this project.
Me too.
Because this is something we've been talking about for quite a while, right?
For a long time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is a series that we are starting together, and it is called Solving Problems in the Landscape.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we found is, even in the garden tours, and we've talked, there's certain indigenous problems to every landscape that you can do beautiful flowers, you can do wonderful plants, you can even do a nice design. But what we found is unless you solve the problems that the certain jobs have, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money just goes down the toilet.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So a lot of times Michael and I were sitting here, we were discussing a garden that we had seen, and it was just maybe one thing, maybe two things that the homeowner were having problems with. And you were telling me so many times you would be going to do these consultations, right?
Absolutely. In fact, I was telling you a story, and it was one of the subscribers that watched your series and everything, the nicest person. And I went out there and we were walking around, and I have to say, in this, as I was telling you before, they did an amazing job on some of their planting.
Right.
It was beautiful, the layering and the flowers and the color, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But when we went out to the backyard and I was commenting, the minute my eyes went up and I looked, there was a two-story house behind him.
Oh.
There were windows and there were doors. And the first thing she said to me was, she goes, the yard is really pretty, and we want to ask you some additional areas we want to touch and we want to design. She said, but we never go out here because we feel like we're in a fishbowl.
Yeah.
She goes, there's no privacy. And so every time we walk out, even though we know that the neighbor is not standing there with binoculars watching us, we just feel like we're in this fishbowl. So she said, we put all this time and effort into making this beautiful space, but we don't go out here because we don't have privacy.
Yeah.
So again, the light bulb went in, and I thought, you know what? We started talking, we thought, what if we did a series of videos to tell people these are some of the problems that you need to solve at the same time you're working on your landscape. And so we do a video that people can actually watch and say, oh, that's one of my problems. How do I solve it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is something that I, as a gardener, because I'm not, Michael is a landscape designer, an award-winning landscape designer.
Thank you.
This is stuff that I personally don't think about. I think about the pretty plant, and I think about the bloom, and I think about where I want, the combinations. But then what you bring to the mix is that you can bring these solutions for the fishbowl effect or whatever it is.
Right.
So what we've decided to do is we've decided to do a series together. They will be coming out over the next couple weeks/months of different problems that we have been hearing that a lot of you have been having in the landscape, or some of your clients when you go to do your consultations, things that people are issues that people are having. So it's going to be a full playlist on my channel. Make sure you subscribe and follow that playlist, and we're going to give all the information that we possibly can for all of you to help solve the problems in your landscape.
And it's not going to be dull and boring, and a lot of you might be watching and going, oh, like we are going to do one video on drainage, and a lot of you are going, drainage.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. That's going to be really exciting to watch this.
But it's important.
It's important.
Yes.
And I cannot begin to stress how many times, in fact, one of the places that we're going to go to, they wound up with black mold. The client wound up in the hospital from the exposure to black mold.
Because of drainage issues.
Because all the water flowed back to the house, got into the drywall, turned to black mold. She was breathing it in, and she wound up in the hospital.
Yeah, which is it's just crazy to
Right.
think about that, right?
And then another client, which just another series that we're going to talk about in our problems, when we talk about hardscape and levels. This was a really interesting one because Janie's actually providing Vigo planners for this lady.
Yep.
She had this backyard that had all these different levels, a step here and a step here and a step here. And when we redesigned it, what we wound up doing was leveling the whole thing out so it's just one level and it feels bigger. But at the very end, I mean, after the new patio was poured, she finally admitted to me, she goes, I never told you, she goes, but about 3 or 4 months ago, I tripped on one of the levels. I
Yeah.
hit my head. I was in the hospital with a concussion, and I blacked out because I literally went straight down and I
Yeah.
tripped on one of the different levels.
Solving problems in the landscape.
Yeah.
So we're going to get started today with something that we both feel very strongly about because we both have those issues,
Yes.
and that is privacy and screening. So let's
Yes.
get on to it.
Yes.
So Michael and I were discussing and trying to figure out an easy way to get the message across to everybody.
Yeah.
How can we explain to everybody what the different solutions are for your problem? Because my solution for my problem is going to be different from yours. Some of your clients that are able to afford more expensive solutions
Right.
are going to be different from someone else that can't be able to afford it.
Absolutely.
So we've decided to do the 3 levels.
The 3 levels, yeah, we decided to talk about maybe a gardener or what you can do using plants, maybe a DIYer. Some of you, which are wonderful, can do a lot of the, building yourself. And then, of course, there's if you hire a designer and you go full board and hire a contractor, what can you do? And a lot of times it'll be an incorporation of all 3.
Yes.
But I think it's really important because if you can't afford to hire a contractor or a designer, there are still solutions you can do yourself because you're a DIYer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing that we want to get across is that there is a designer solution, but there is a DIY solution, and there is a gardener solution. There's something that you can do with plant material that might even include just sowing seeds. You might have to wait a little bit longer, but you'll get there, right?
Absolutely.
So that's where we're going to go with this whole series for you guys. I hope that you join us with it because we are so excited about it, and we're so excited about solving problems in your landscape. All right, so the inaugural episode of our Solving Problems in the Landscape is something we are so excited about.
Yes, very excited.
Because it's a big deal for both your gorgeous property here and my property, and that is privacy and screening issues, right?
Right. As I said earlier, I mean, there's nothing more frustrating to go out into your yard and feel like the neighbor is looking in on you, or if you're sitting there and you're looking into windows, balconies, doors, or if you live on a busy street and you see cars rolling by, that's a really important thing that you need to think about. I have clients that they didn't plan on it, but when they bought the property and then the property behind them was sold, they wound up building apartments. And so they not only have a 2-story house behind them, but they have a 3-story apartment where people are sitting on balconies and looking in, and it's like, talk about lack of privacy.
Talk about lack of privacy. So it's why we wanted to do this episode first, because it's probably the biggest issue. And not only privacy of people looking in, but we were also discussing us looking out, or maybe things that we don't want to look at, like air conditioning units, right?
Garbage cans.
Yeah.
Pool equipment.
Solar panels, whatever it is.
Storage units.
Storage units, yeah.
And the one thing that I will say is the trend is going a very interesting way. In the past, people had large pieces of property. They didn't really have to worry, but in today's world, what's happening is, because real estate is so expensive,
I know, yeah.
they're going into small, nice size home, but a much smaller space. So, and even going straight up, so that all you've got for your landscape is a balcony.
Right.
Or you're living in a condo with people looking in. So never before have I ever seen a situation where talking about screening and privacy is so important.
Absolutely. And then the other thing that we were talking about as well is not so much privacy, but intimacy, right?
Yes.
So you all know the hot tub that I installed in my backyard, and Michael and I joke about it all the time. We have goats living next door, and we joke about the goats looking at Jason and I as we're in the hot tub, and we have to have some privacy for that.
Right.
It's not that we're trying to hide from the goats.
Right.
It's that we want the feeling of intimacy when we are in a hot tub, right?
Right. And I get that a lot because a lot of times people, if they have a spa, a sauna, a cold plunge, and some people, let's be honest, some people are not going to be wearing clothes, okay? But even if you are wearing a bathing suit, it's a psychological thing that if there's wide open spaces and you don't feel as intimate, you might not use it as much.
Right.
So being able to put some sort of decorative screen that will show the people, immediately gives you that intimate feeling that you don't feel so exposed.
Right.
Yeah.
So it could be a problem in your landscape that you're not even aware is a problem. And hopefully this video will draw your attention to it so that you can fix it, whether it's the gardener's solution, the DIYer's solution, or the designer's solution.
Absolutely. So the first thing we're going to talk about, or one of the things we're going to talk about is, I would say the gardener's solution, but it's also the designer solution.
Yes. Yeah.
Is if you're stuck with a two-story house behind you, or you're not so much a condominium because on a patio because you don't have that versatility. But let's say you've got a backyard and there's a two-story home and you're looking at windows, you're looking at a balcony, you're looking at roofs. What's your best solution?
Mm-hmm.
And
so as a gardener, there's a couple things that you can think about, whether it's vining plants that can grow up and give you some privacy or some screening. There's hedges, which we often call privacy hedges. That's a really great option. And then, of course, there's trees.
There's evergreen trees.
Yeah.
Right?
So we wanted to go over some options for all of you. And of course, we are located in California. We are obviously heavy on California plantings, but a lot of these will spill over into other parts of the world.
Right.
So you kind of just have to do some searching and figure out what type of vining plants will do well for you. So my favorites are star jasmine.
Love it.
Honeysuckle.
Love it.
Evergreen clematis.
Yes.
Bougainvillea.
Bougainvillea is really nice.
A huge one.
Yeah, that's
if you live in colder areas, you can do sweet autumn clematis, which is a great one.
Which is a great one.
Do you want to talk about the difference between deciduous and evergreen?
Yes, and a lot of you, there are, like, for example, clematis is wonderful. Oh my God, the colors of clematis, amazing. Purples, blue, magenta, but it's a deciduous plant.
Right.
And a lot of you are saying, well, what do you mean by that? In the wintertime, it loses its leaves, like Boston ivy or
Yes.
Virginia creeper.
Yes.
It's beautiful, especially in the fall when they turn those bright colors. The problem that you have is if you're planting a vine for privacy or screening, unless you plan on never going outside in the wintertime,
Right. Yeah.
when it loses its leaves, all you're going to look at is bare sticks and twigs.
Yeah.
So when you think about privacy or screening vines, you definitely want to do evergreens. And there's a difference. Deciduous lose their leaves in the wintertime. Evergreens keep their leaves all year round.
And when we're talking about screening and privacy, obviously evergreens is going to be, if you can, it's going to be the way to go. So the next step after vining plants are privacy hedges.
Privacy hedges.
So the new privacy hedge that I'm super, super excited about, and I know you've heard me talk about, is the new release from Proven Winners Spring Meadow Shrub Line, which is Yardline Viburnum. This is a zone 7 through 9. It gets 12 feet tall and only 4 feet wide. And the exciting thing about this one is that it grows so incredibly fast.
Love it.
So that's a great example
And
of...
it's an evergreen.
It's an evergreen. It's a great example of a privacy hedge that's going to be absolutely fantastic. Arborvitaes.
Arborvitae
Thuyas
are great because they come in all different sizes. The giant one can get 20, 25 feet tall.
Yeah, really good one. Another really great one, if you like the color, is red tip photinia, right? That is one that is used heavily in this area.
Yeah.
And it really does have some really beautiful color that the new growth will turn kind of red, and a lot of people like using it.
And can get 25, 30 feet.
Yeah. Oleander.
Oleander. Yes, it's poisonous, but it has an amazing flower.
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
And again, as long as you don't have little kids or animals, it can get 12 to 15 feet tall.
Yeah.
And again, it's an evergreen, so it gives you a wonderful screen.
It's beautiful.
Trees that I love, bay laurels, the Laurus nobilis, which is the bay leaf. You can actually take the leaves, dry them, and use them for spaghetti.
Yeah, double duty, right? And then you also love podocarpus that I love too. Podocarpus graciliar is, I think, one of the most beautiful hedging trees or privacy trees that you could possibly have.
Absolutely. And they can get 30, 35 feet. And the thing that's neat about that is not only can they grow as a big tree, but you can also espalier them, which means you put them on a trellis so that instead of you having to worry about all of the thickness, the width, you can grow them flat and they grow straight up on a trellis and still get the privacy.
Just beautiful. I just love it. They're my favorite.
You know, if you were talking about espaliers, and we could also use citrus.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Um,
Beautiful.
Lemon, lime, orange, they will, I mean, a full-size orange tree is 25 feet.
Yeah.
And it's an evergreen and it's beautiful. An espalier citrus, though, again, it won't grow out, it'll stay dense, but what a great thing because you can train it up 12, 15 feet.
Yeah. And so a really great example of using trees as privacy is what you've done in this yard, right?
Yes.
You have this incredible entertaining area right here, and you do have a neighbor that has double level balcony on the second
Exactly.
floor.
And the last thing I wanted was to look over to the side and see the neighbor sitting on the balcony. Hi there.
Yeah, right. And so you've planted this basically this hedge alternating between podocarpus and then is that the laurel?
Yeah, I have the Laurus nobilis, podocarpus, and then to make it even fuller, pineapple guavas.
Oh, yes, that's a good one. That's
Yep.
beautiful.
The Fijoa celowiana, that one also will get about 10, 12 feet.
Yeah.
Does have a fruit and a flower, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
Silver gray.
Evergreen.
Evergreen.
Yep. Yep.
So again, and you don't just have to plant one. In fact, working with a client right now that has a major privacy problem.
Major issue. I'll show you a photo right now.
Photo of there.
Yeah.
I basically told them they're going to have to do a series of trees in the back, trees in the front, and then lower things so that you get different levels because they have a massive, and you'll see, a 3-story apartment with balconies that all look in. You have no privacy. They feel like they're in this yard.
Yeah, that's a huge privacy issue. So in that one, you as the designer, you would do the trees, the three
levels. But I also, which brings us to another thing, when we were talking about the vining plants, what I basically told them was, I also suggested, because they need some shade, to put an overhead, but at the end of the overhead, for the time being, to actually put welded wire mesh and then put the vines on there so that until the trees, because they need trees that are going to be 30 feet tall.
Right.
And until those trees, no matter how big we put them in, no matter how big they are, they're not going to be 30 feet. So it's going to take 3, maybe 5 years for them to grow.
Right.
But until they do, by putting in the mesh or a lattice and growing a vine, you immediately get the privacy.
So that's what we consider the gardener solution to privacy and screening issues. Now let's talk about the DIY or the homeowner solutions, which would be kind of like DIY screens, right?
DIY screens, yes.
So you love using the cow panels,
I do, the hog wire panels.
Hog wire panels, yeah.
Welded wire mesh panels, you get them at Tractor Supply, you get them at a feed store. They come in sheets or rolls. The sheets are easier to deal with, and they're 4 feet by 8 foot high. And the thing that I love about them is they're nice and strong. You can leave them just gray kind of metal, or you can paint them. And then what you do is the DIYer can actually just put pressure treated posts in the ground, frame them out. You don't even need, you can use staples or nails, nail them to the pressure treated post.
Yeah.
Put a little stringer on the top, a 2x6 or a 2x4. Put one at the bottom so that doesn't flop around. And then what we recommend, the Janey and Michael method, is stain the whole thing so it doesn't look like you have green posts.
Yeah.
And, everything all blends, and all of a sudden, that's something the homeowner can do. It's easy, and then you plant your vines and you're done.
Yeah, and it makes a huge impact, and I actually love the look of that style. When I see people that have that as their fences or as a screen, to me it's gorgeous, and it's something that you can do that doesn't break the bank, which I think is something that's important that Michael and I want to get across with this solutions for your landscape.
Right.
So then the other thing is curtains.
Curtains,
right?
right.
So if you have a like a covered patio like this, and maybe you have some junk over off to the side, like some pool equipment or like an ugly AC unit, something simple as curtains, right?
Curtains. IKEA sells already grommeted outdoor curtains.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, you can imagine, even if you just, it sounds kind of basic, but if you put 2 posts in, pressure treated, paint them out so that they don't just look green.
Right.
And then you just did a wire, either a curtain rod or just a heavy duty wire, hang the curtains. The thing that's so neat about it is when you need the privacy, you can close them down.
Yeah.
But when you don't worry about it, you can just open them up. You can put a sash on them. It makes it really dramatic.
I know.
It's really pretty.
I mean, you can really wrap that into the decor that you have,
Yes, you
something
can.
like that. So it's an idea of just kind of think outside the box a little bit But just because you have a privacy issue or you have a screening issue, we still want you to use that space as much as possible. And that's ultimately the most important thing. So
Right.
it could be something as, a hog panel or even curtains.
Or curtains, or again, if you put in the post, you can do 1x2s. Run them horizontally with a 1/2 inch space to get the airflow. Stain that out, and all of a sudden you're not looking. People aren't looking in.
Yeah.
You're not looking out, but you can still see through that, and you still get the breeze going through there.
Wonderful. So say we all had a little bit more money. We could afford to have a designer come in and give us the creme de la creme of the solutions for privacy and for intimacy. What would you recommend to people for people to do?
I would do all three. So and that's the funny thing is, I would start, because no matter how good a screening you do with vines and everything, if you need to get something that's 30, 35 feet, that's where the trees and the hedges come in.
Okay.
So that would be the first thing I would recommend.
Great.
Second thing, as a designer, I like the idea of doing the welded wire mesh panel, but I would probably do them with metal poles and have them welded. It's a little bit more expensive.
Yeah.
Or
so kind of like a upgraded version of the wire mesh panels. Yeah.
Or I'm madly in love with the laser or the plasma cut screen.
Me too. Me too. And that's what I just installed in my property. And I have to say, it's not as designer as you would think. You can actually, if you find someone to do it for you, you can actually get pretty much custom, a custom panel installed for not that expensive.
Right.
So.
And there's over 1,000. People go, oh, there's only no, there's 1,000 designs.
There's so many.
So many.
I literally was like, I want an olive branch with some olives, and he found it for like, it was just crazy. You know what I mean?
So I've done leaf pattern. I did the dahlia pattern. I've done so many different patterns, and that's what I love, because you can paint them, you can rust them out.
Yeah.
There's so much variation. So as a designer, I would do all three. And I will tell you, I'm madly in love with the curtain idea.
I know.
Think that is so neat.
You're going to put that in all your
yeah. I mean, if you think about it, if you wanted to do Arabian Nights and you want to create a theme, you could do big cushions, colorful pillows, and then you do your sheer curtains.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, it's called having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And they even have that sunbrella fabric.
Yes, they
do. If you wanted it to be a little bit more, intense for that even is something that you could use.
And then keep in mind, sometimes on the market they have umbrellas that tilt. So if you need a little bit of screening for a short period of time, you can even buy an umbrella and tilt it so that if whether it be privacy or even the sun coming in, you can tilt that umbrella and give you some additional privacy.
Which is what you use in your kitchen here.
That's what I do.
Amazing. So then the last thing that I wanted to talk about is the overhangs, how you use overhangs. Yes, they're for shade. Yes, they're for weather protection, but you also use them as privacy a little bit too.
I do, because some of my clients basically say, there's a 2-story house, it's on a hill. They can be up in the house looking down, and we feel like, again, they're looking at us. They're not.
Yeah, they don't care.
They don't care. But it's a psychological thing. So what do you do? So again, you can do the shade cloth.
Yes.
Which they even sell at Home Depot.
Yes.
Which again is webbed so that when it lets the heat escape, you can do shade sails.
Yes.
And again, which are beautiful, and that again, so that people can't look in, it gives you shade, but it also gives you privacy. You can do the laser cut screens.
Oh, as an overhang?
As a overhang. In fact, I'll show you a picture of that.
Wow.
We just recently did that, and that's beautiful. And again, it lets the light in, but people can't see through it. So again, there are different levels, and that's the whole thing. The creative part of what we do is that there's not just one solution, but no matter what you do, you have to solve the problem.
Because you want to use your outdoor space. That's the main thing. We're trying to get you all outside, gardening, using your space, entertaining outside, because to us, we just think that it's one of the most important things.
It feeds the soul.
It feeds the soul.
It feeds the soul.
So I hope you all enjoyed this. This is the first of many in our series for solving problems in the landscape. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And also, for those of you, just a little tidbit in the future, We're even going to do a problem solving for the four-legged problems.
Oh, yes.
Deer, bulls, moles,
Gophers.
gophers.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that because, again, you can do these gorgeous yards and then Mr. and Mrs. Deer come in and just mow it down, or the gopher just eats it all. So we're going to cover that too.
Yeah, we have so many ideas. We'd love to hear your input in the comment section down below. Let us know what issues you're having in your garden. And I just appreciate you doing this with me because it's so fun to have you give kind of a different insight on the designer insight. It's just huge. So,
thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you to all of you. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you all have a chance to get in your garden today.